Streaming into workplace. Perfect. We're recording now. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Rich Gannum. I hail from the wonderful city of Cleveland, Ohio. And I have been in the business for 14 years. And I've had the value, or I've had the privilege of leading three really large real estate offices, two for a national franchise and one for a large independent. I've been a productivity coach. I have a sales team here in Cleveland. I'm also licensed in the wonderful Sunshine State. So I have dual licenses that are active, that are producing. In my career, I have sold about $100 million in real estate over the last 14 years. And I don't say that to brag. I just say that because I want to provide some context to you, because it's not about me. It's about what we get to do and how we get to serve. Um, so I want to thank you for being here. It's a nice, I'm in my basement this morning, and when I looked out the window as I was walking down, it was nice and rainy. So at least being down here, I don't actually get to see the lovely weather that we get in Cleveland. So you're going to need, for our call this morning, you're going to need something to write with and something to write on. Claire, I'm so incredibly jealous. Something to write with and something to write on. And I'm going to start this morning in my notes. I'm going to start on. I'm going to start with some effects that the NAR settlement can have on listing agents. Let's start with some of the effects that NAR can have on listing agents. And as we go through this, guys, I want you to know that you might disagree with me on some of this, and that's okay. You might disagree with me. You might get mad at me. And again, that's okay. I don't know if all of these are true. I don't know if any of these will even happen. But these are just things that after a 4-day mastermind with some of the brightest people in our industry, these are what we came up with. We came up with 7 effects to the listing agent, 10 effects to the buyer's agent, and 22 solutions. And I'm going to share those with you this morning. So let's start with the effects that this could have on a listing agent. Number 1, more buyers will go directly to the listing agent. More buyers could go directly to the listing agent. Now, I say that to you because buying real estate could potentially turn into buying a car. Okay? Buying real estate could potentially turn into buying a car, where you go directly to the listing agent, you go directly to the car dealership, right? Number 2, on effects this can have on a listing agent, is that for sale by owner and expired opportunities are going to increase. For sale by owner and expired opportunities are going to increase. The reason for that is there are going to be a lot of people that are just going to take a listing and that aren't going to be strong enough to do it the right way. Number 3 in the effects that this will have on a listing agent is your database deals will increase. As a strong listing agent, you will have the opportunity to pull more business from your database than you ever have before. The 4th effect that this could have on listing agents, and buyer's agents, be ready for this, you're not going to like it, is the listing agents will still have the influence over what buyer's agents get paid. Listing agents will still have influence over what the buyer's agents will get paid. Let me explain. If I am sitting on as a listing agent and I have 2 offers, and one is from a brand new agent and one is from an experienced agent that I've worked with before, and I'm in control of how the seller is going to operate this, who might get offered more money? That's my point. The fifth way that this has an effect on listing agent, I don't know if it's positive or negative. Listing agents, you will have the ability to sell your listings at your open house. You will have the ability to sell your listings at your open house. Strong listing agents, number 6, strong listing agents will have a better opportunity to build their teams and their networks if they choose to build a listing first model. If they choose to build a listing first model. And the 7th thing, and you're already starting to see this with homes.com, and you're going to start to see this even more with Zillow as they change their platform and Realtor as they change their platform, because they're going to have to adapt. You're going to go back to my listing, my lead, and listing agents are going to have more reason than ever to work with their leads. So those are the 7 effects that this settlement could have on listing agents.
Rich,
Yes.
dumbify number 7 for me.
More reason to work with leads. So if you're the listing agent, you're going to have more reason to work with your leads should they come directly to you, because you will be able to control the sales process. You are going to, in your listing agreements, you are going to have, as all these changes come, you are going to have the listing fee of X, and are we going to offer a seller concession to the buyer of Y? Strong listing agents are going to add a fee into the listing agreement should they double end the deal. Strong listing agents are not going to work for free on the buy side. They're just not. So you will have more incentive than ever to work your own leads.
Would you mind repeating number 6?
Number 6 is strong listing agents will have the ability to build their teams and their networks around a listing first model. So the difference to that would be how the majority of teams around the country are ran, where they're a buyer first model, where they're buying buyer leads and they're more buyer heavy. Strong listing agents are going to change their model to a listing first model.
Rich, can I ask a question?
Certainly.
How long have you been a strong listing agent for your team?
When
did you switch?
So for the last 9 months, I've tried to only work with buyers that come from my SOI. I have, over the last 9 months, any buyer lead that I have gotten through referral or through curation, I have given to the team. My focus is listings. One, it's the most amount of leverage. It allows me to be home at night with my kids, and I can actually get paid more as a listing agent than I can as a buyer's agent. Because in Cleveland, I don't know, and again, I don't know how this is with where you live. Cleveland is a very weird location. We do not get paid a flat percentage of sales price. We are on a graduated scale. So in where you live, where if you sell a $300,000 house, you might make $9,000. In Cleveland, if we sell a $300,000 house, we get paid 3% on the first $100,000 and 2% on the balance if we're lucky. We might make $7,400 on that sale. But as a listing agent, I take a listing at 6%, I'm going to make more money. So we just talked about 7 ways or 7 effects that this can have on listing agents. Now let's change to the buyer's agents, okay? So either turn to a clean sheet of paper or draw a line. We have 10 different effects. Again, do not shoot the messenger. This is from 4 days of masterminding with some of the top people in our industry. These are the 10 things we decided were the most important effects that this is going to have on buyer's agents. And this is in no particular order. Number 1, buyers are going to expect to not pay a commission. Buyers are going to expect to not pay a commission. And you're going to ask why, and I'm going to tell you it's because they've never had to before. The second effect that this can have on buyer's agents is that buyer's agents are going to hear, I will just work with the listing agent more. We already see it a little bit where buyers think they're going to get a deal if they go right to the listing agent. We could potentially see more of that. Number 3 is on the list because there was somebody in the room that had made a very strong case that they're going to change their business model to this. So it's on the list. Discount buyer brokerage model will exist. A discount buyer brokerage model will exist. What does it look like? It could be $500. It could be $1,000. It could be 1%. You're going to see, if you haven't seen it already, you're going to see agents say, my fee is X. Just like you see, your flat fee listing brokerages, your 1% listing brokerages, you're going to see a model similar to that on the buy side. Your buyer database might see a decline. Your buyer database might see a decline. For those of you that buy buyer leads, I have some good news for you. Your leads might get cheaper, but that's probably going to be because these large companies are going to go to the listing agent to buy the leads. So what you might see is like an op city where op city, it's a realtor.com subsidiary, right? Where it goes to realtor.com. If nobody claims it, it fires into op city. You might see a model like that specifically for listing leads. First-time home buyers and low-income buyers will struggle, and they may decide to go it alone. First-time home buyers and low-income buyers will struggle, and they may delay the process or choose to go it alone. The seventh thing, and we talked a great deal about this, and I believe that every brokerage is going to have this agreement come July. There will be a non-exclusive buyer's agreement, a non-exclusive buyer agency agreement, because buyers will not want to be locked in to working with one agent. What this
Hey, Rich.
Yes, go ahead.
I just want to throw in one thing. I'm sorry. I'm driving, so I'm on the single buyer's agreement property disclosure that EXP came up with will be a perfect opportunity, especially if they're just showing that one house.
Correct.
So the buyer doesn't feel like they're locked in permanently, but they'll be at least locked into the home that you're showing.
Correct. What we might see is similar to how investors operate, where they say, if you find me the deal, I'll buy it through you. We might see that on the buyer side more prominently. We are probably going to see buyers that are going to get it pre-approved one way and find a house they want to buy and have to change loan programs to help cover the cost, particularly if they have to assist in compensation, which would mean they could potentially put less down payment. Number 9, buyer's agents will have less excitement to hold somebody else's open house. And number 10, and this is one that we said is the greatest opportunity and the greatest effect for buyer's agents. So I want you to do number 10, but I want you to put a star next to it. Buyer's agents will get paid more for those that see their value. Buyer's agents will get paid more for those that see their value. What questions do you have on the effects to buyer's agents or the effects to listing agents before we jump into the 22 solutions?
Rich, I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Forgive me. Number 5 and number 8. I missed it because I looked at that as an opportunity that you were just expounding on the one previous.
Number 5, buyer leads will get cheaper and more companies will go to the listing agent for money. And what this might look like could be a subscription fee, where it is a certain dollar amount per month, and then a percentage on as a referral at closing. And then number 8, Claire, was buyers may need to change their loan program to cover costs, which could mean less money down for down payment. There was a question in the chat from Olga. Can we get a link to the list? There is not a link to the list, but this is being recorded in Workplace. So you can go back in, rewatch it, and take any notes that you need. All right. So let's change gears now. So turn to a clean sheet of paper, and we're going to go over 22 solutions to those 17 effects. Again, don't shoot the messenger. I'm just here to help. Number 1, start training on the buy and sell side to understand that as a buyer, they will be expected to pay the difference between what they agree to in their buyer agency and what is being offered as a seller concession. On the seller side, you need to train your scripting around working with the seller to understand they are expected to offer compensation. I'm going to repeat that. Start training on the buy and sell side to understand that as a buyer, they will be expected to pay the difference. And on the selling side, on the listing side, they will be expected to offer compensation, concession, commission, whatever you want to call it. Number 2, update all of your buyer and seller presentation materials immediately. Start using all of this now. Number 3, and I'm going to encourage this from here to high heaven, and you will never hear me say anything otherwise. I want you to start being an early trend setter, and I want you to continue to offer a fair compensation when you're taking a seller listing. Be an early trendsetter and continue to offer a fair compensation when you're taking a seller listing.
Quick question there. What do you mean by fair compensation? Would it be the like the other 3% or 2% or something like that?
I don't know what is what your market is like. I don't know where you're located, so I can't say specifically. But in the Cleveland market, I'm encouraging my team to offer what we would consider a fair compensation. My folks that work with me in Florida, I'm encouraging them to do the exact same. Every market's different in how compensation is offered, so I can't speak specifically to that. But whatever you would deem as fair, let me put it this way. If you were to rep the buyer on that property, how much would you want to make? Offer that.
Can I add to that, Rich, real quick?
Certainly.
So Ted, I had this conversation with one of my listing appointments yesterday, and they wanted to ask that question. And I said, here's the deal. You may receive visibility online from a weak agent, but has a strong buyer. If we are able to have bigger pools of buyers that are coming to the table, it is still, I highly recommend we offer some type of compensation to help them obtain the home. Okay, that is the way that I worded it, because of course we're already here in the vernacular here in Florida, you know, about this. And I said, I understand, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, that is completely understanding. However, you're going to shortcut the visibility of buyers that could purchase this home if at this time you choose not to cooperate or compensate. And there's a difference. It's your choice.
And
And
what I
Yeah.
would say to piggyback on top of what Claire is saying is if you're not hearing these objections already, you're not having enough conversations.
That is absolutely correct. So
In
when
the
you're real
last
playing right now, yeah.
in the last week, I've had 3 buyer consultations and 2 listing appointments, and every single one of them brought it up. Okay, number 4. If you're not part of one, create one, but get with top agents in your town to discuss this, but do not talk about price. Because that's antitrust. Get with top agents in your town to talk about what's going on, but do not talk about price. I mentioned this when we were talking about the 7 effects on the listing side. I'm going to talk about it again here. Charge an additional fee to the seller if there is no representation by the buyer and the buyer comes directly to you. Number 6, consider increasing your transaction fee. Consider increasing your transaction fee. Here, the context behind why this was brought up. If the average commission nationwide, if the average commission is like 2.5%, we might see it drop to 2.25 or some variation of that. I don't believe we're going to see a significant drop, but it could be, it could be, 20 to 30%. Okay. So if you increase the transaction fee, you're going to help recoup some of that cost. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Number 7. Help agents believe that it is not morally wrong to collect the difference. Help other agents believe it is not morally wrong to collect the difference. And what I mean by that is traditionally, buyer's agents have just accepted what's been offered in the MLS as compensation. Traditionally, that's how it's been done. I want to encourage you to believe, because I believe it at this point, I believe it. It is not morally wrong. It is my job. It is my job to do what I do at an extremely high level, and it's my job to support my family. This is my fee. I learned a lot about that when I started digging into these money hungry attorneys that decided they were going to go after this lawsuit. They charge 30 to 40%. They're coming after people that charge 6. I don't think they believe what they do is morally wrong. So why should we? You're worth it. Turn your open house strategy into an event and be known for that. Turn your open house strategy into an event and be known for that. The next one is declare that you are a listing focused realtor and a listing focused company specializing in helping sellers get their house sold.
Restate that.
Declare you are a listing focused agent or company specializing in helping sellers get their house sold. If you're building a team, recruit agents that carry 5 or more listings at a time. If you're building a team, recruit agents that carry 5 or more listings at a time. And if listings are super tight and competitive like they are here in Cleveland, recruit agents or listing agents that have sold 5 or more listings in the last 90 days. Some of you are going to hate what I'm going to say next, and I'm okay with that. If you run a team, you might want to consider creating a policy that the agent collects a minimum commission or they owe the difference. A lot of people hate that. And yet, this next one is going to be why. Your new non-negotiable is script practice, where you write, chant, and role play the new scripting until you have it mastered. No exceptions. Script practice becomes mandatory, where you write, chant, and role play the new conversations until you have them mastered.
That goes back to the old adage, you do it until you don't get it wrong instead of doing it till you get it right.
Amateurs practice until they get it right. Professionals practice until they can't get it wrong. 100%. The next thing is to learn how to write copy regarding the new rules. Learn how to write copy regarding the new rules and how to explain it.
So Rich, some may not understand what that means so far as write copy.
Yeah.
You're a content builder, so I knew what you meant. However, we've got some newer agents. Let's help them out a little bit.
So copy is the text, the words that we're going to use when we need to explain something. Okay. So if you're going to have a blog post, the text is your copy. If you're going to shoot a video, the words you're going to say become your copy. We have to learn how to speak intelligently around what's going on, because the buyers believe this is a good thing. The consumer believes this is a good thing. Whether you believe it or not, it's a good thing. You need to choose your words correctly so that you can intelligently talk about this. So under that, under this one, I want you to just put like an A or like a 1B or whatever. And I'm going to tell you to stop talking crap. I was good there. I didn't say the word I wanted to. Stop talking crap about Zillow, Redfin, and Realtor.com. Because the consumer trusts them and they don't yet trust you. We all know that the A in Zillow stands for accuracy. We don't need to talk crap about that to the consumer, to the public. 1B to that. 1B to that is everything you talk about is going to be about the good things that this is going to do for the consumer. Because the media is saying this is a good thing and the consumers believe it is a good thing. So how do you write copy now about how this benefits the consumer? Because in their mind, it's a benefit. In your mind, it's a negative because it affects your wallet. In their mind, it's a positive. The next point, communicate with your database like you've never communicated before and let them know that you've always had their back. You will continue to have their back. And you will always offer the best service at competitive prices. If you're communicating with your database once a month, do it twice a month. If you're communicating with your database twice a month, do it 3 times a month. For my teams out there, for my team leaders out there, create contests for your agents around getting buyer signed contracts. For those of you that have a listing board and a closing board, add a third board for buyer contracts. So I want you to have a listing board, a closed board, and a buyer contract board. We now track and measure everything, including that.
So Rich, there's Evelyn put a great comment in the chat. Can you give examples of how it benefits the consumer?
Evelyn, can you turn your camera on and unmute yourself, please? Where are we? There we go. Evelyn, let me ask you, how is this a benefit to the consumer? What do you believe? What do you believe about this? You're muted.
I honestly don't see the benefit. That's why I was asking, because I
Okay.
really
Let
couldn't
me
figure that
ask you,
one out.
why don't you believe this is a benefit to the consumer?
Because it takes away from all the showing on the listing side, it's less showings. And on the buyer side, a lot of them will probably go directly to the listing agent and therefore they won't have representation. And I've already seen that like throughout the past years where people will always assume that if they go to the listing agent, they get a better deal. So like I said, I really didn't see a benefit. So that's why I was asking the
So
question.
I'm going to encourage you to reframe everything that you just said and think about how this becomes a benefit to the consumer. Because for the last number of years, probably going back to when NAR first started, right? There has never been transparency in our industry. This allows more transparency. This allows the consumer to choose. And it puts both sides of the consumer in the driver's seat. Because As buyer's agents, if you had two properties, one was offering 3% and one was offering 2%, which one do you want your buyer to buy?
See, I've always shown the buyers, in my case, I've always shown them whatever they want to see.
Certainly.
I've
Certainly.
never looked at that, you
Certainly.
know?
Certainly. But do you believe that there are agents that might push their buyer to buy the one that they're going to get paid more on?
Yes.
That's why it's a benefit to the consumer.
Okay.
Because they're going to know going in full transparency. They're going to know going in full transparency how much you're going to make. And if they choose to buy that one, that's their choice. It's 100% a benefit to the consumer.
Okay.
And the faster that we can get on board with that, the faster you're going to see that your business is actually going to benefit.
Okay.
So if there are things that you think aren't a benefit, I want you to write them all down. I want you to write down every single thing that you see that's not a benefit. And then I want you to take your real estate license and I want you to hang it up in your coat closet. Then I want you to come back to that list as a consumer. And I want you to identify the positive, the adverse to that. Because
Okay, that's good.
what we see as a negative, the consumer sees as a positive. Because this change affects your wallet. This change affects how you do business. So if you don't think that what's going to take place today, tomorrow, and into July is going to be a good thing,
Mm-hmm.
you're not going to come out on the other side ahead.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I get that.
So when we take the negative and we turn it into a positive, we now have the ability to write amazing copy for our consumers about why this is good for them. Think about it from a politician standpoint. Okay? If you're a politician and something bad happens, neither side of the aisle acknowledges that what took place is bad. They only talk about the good things that are going to take place. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
That's the way we have to approach this.
Okay.
Make
Got
sense?
it.
Make sense?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Thank
That's a
you.
that's a great question, though. Thank you for asking. Agents and team. The next one: agents and teams that are first to the market with new buyer agent materials will have an unfair advantage. Agents and teams that are first to the market with new buyer agent materials will have an unfair advantage. The next one, this is probably more on a brokerage level, but I'm gonna share it with you. The simpler the buyer agreement, the more likely it is the consumer will sign it. The more complex the agreement, the less likely they're going to sign it. For those that are buyer heavy, I want you to start creating buyer facts and statistics about why somebody should work with you. Use your buyer statistics around why somebody should work with you. It could be that your average buyer looks at 3 to 5 houses before they end up getting an accepted offer. It could be that you average 99% list to sale ratio. It could be that you negotiate more seller concessions than somebody else. Whatever your stats are, I want you to start talking about them. Because listing agents use stats to their advantage. Buyer's agents need to do that now too. To piggyback off of that one, the next one is to start considering creating buyer marketing material like listing agents do when they circle prospect. Buyer's agents, if you have a buyer that wants to live in XYZ neighborhood and there's nothing for sale, you have the opportunity to double end a deal. You have to use your stats and you have to create marketing material. Just as listing agents will say, we'll send out just sold postcards to that neighborhood they sold a home in, you need to start doing it as well. Two more. Buyer's agents, you need to start recording everything you do on the buyer side of the transaction. Mike, to answer your question, it doesn't. Start videoing everything you do on the buyer side of the transaction. Because I will tell you, there's probably more that you do that you don't realize. And when you can have it documented, you now can use that as content. You now can use that as proof that I do more than just open a door, fumble a lockbox, curse out the listing agent. There's way more than that we do, right? Than what the consumer thinks we do. Okay, two more. Become more transparent in everything that you do. The adage of, and I'm super guilty with this. I used to pride myself on absorbing every single bump in the road for my clients. I'm done doing that. There is now a level of transparency that when there is a bump in the road, the client knows about it. They will know everything that happens through the course of the transaction so that they know that I'm actually doing my job rather than sitting there and waiting for the deal to close. The last one, excuse me one second. The last one, you might want to consider buying listing leads. And this will go back to the buyer model where it might be subscription based, where it's X number of dollars per month and then a referral at closing. We will probably start to see that way more than we have in the past.
Rich, this is huge and impactful, and this is the reason why that I want to pop in just real quick. If we're noticing as an industry that we have not been so transparent and we've been so tenacious in the things that we do for our buyers and sellers without letting them know all of the 270 jobs we do from the first point of contact to closing, we are the ones that have allowed weak agents to get into our industry, and some of those weak agents became sour apples, and that is the reason why we are where we are today. I'm just being real. However, as an industry, as a team, we can create the opportunity that we're not just putting a sign in the yard and putting a lockbox on. We're not just opening doors for our buyers. There is more that we do. And here's a good for instance, and I want to add this because this is so impactful for what you have given us today. And I'm a huge, huge advocate for everything that you have said. Think to yourself, when's the last time that you were in a car accident and the attorney for your car insurance called you, wanted you to sign one-page document that stated they're going to settle the case based upon what your limits were on your policy. And that actual attorney got paid 33 1/3% at least up to 40% of your hard-earned dollars that you paid your insurance company, and he looked at two things: term limits and who was at fault. And he got paid 33 and a third. Now hold on just a second. In our industry, we are tenacious great agents who handle 270 stinking jobs, and we're gonna haggle over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6%. I'm sorry, in today and almost the 20 years that I've been in business, I've always negotiated between 10% and 5%. It's up to you. It's your business, it's your model. Rich has delivered a huge amount of actual implementing, get it done now. Thank you. You are worth as much, if not more, than that ambulance chaser. Please do not think that I'm a bad person by saying that lawyers are not good. They are. However, we handle more jobs in a day than they do. Why are you worried about your commission? Show your worth. What makes you an expert to get that worth is the license that you have. In the state of Florida, your license says you are to serve and protect the consumer. Are you? It's up to you. I'm off my soapbox.
The listings that you're going to see expire are going to be because a weak listing agent couldn't take a listing at the right price. Because the weak listing agent didn't offer a fair compensation. The listings that you're going to see sell are going to be priced right, and compensation is going to be offered. I promise you that. I promise you. The running joke in Florida, you move to Florida, what do you get? You get two things. What do you get? You get a glass of orange juice and your real estate license. It's a running joke. Guys, I hired an agent when I was running one of my companies. I hired an agent that took the test 10 times. Nobody cares. Today, that agent is one of the top agents in Bradenton, Florida. Can't tie their shoes, but will sell the shit out of some real estate. What questions do you have before we wrap up? What ahas do you have? What takeaways do you have? And what is something you're going to implement when you get off of this call? Nothing. Am I still muted?
I've been in the process of updating all of our buyer consultation packages and our listing consultation packages because we're already having the conversations. And Rich, you touched on something that was huge. And even if we don't have a team, if we are not role playing with one another right now so that we don't get into an antitrust issue, okay, then we're doing ourselves a disservice to wait until July. Do you want me to tell you how many brick and mortar companies won't even open up their mouths to the agents that they have right now? Dude,
Oh, yeah.
I have brokers that own brokerage firms in Jacksonville that have called me and said, hey, what's EXP saying about this? And I was like, you know what? We need to have coffee. Here's the thing. I've invited them to our Leo Pereira stuff. I've invited this into the Gene Frederick because they're wanting the information because they have been misinformed. They're local MLSs that are not even taking care of their own agents. Please forgive me. I am passionate about our consumers. And if you're not going to switch your business like what Rich has taught us today to a stronger listing agent than you've ever been in your entire life, you are doing your business model a disservice. Listing agents last. And that is where you shine.
So look at it this way. When you got your real estate license, whenever it was last week, last year, 10 years ago, you got licensed and went, okay, now what do I do? And you had to chase the ball, so to speak. You had to chase the ball to catch up to the agents with listing presentations, with buyer consultations, with all of this stuff. Guys, I don't care if you're the #1 agent on this call or the newest agent on this call. We are all on the exact same playing field right now. We all have the exact same opportunity. The starting line is at the exact same place for every single one of us. And the choice of whether we're going to stick our head in the sand and wait and pretend like none of this is happening, or being proactive and preparing for the worst and expecting the best, you're going to win if you prepare for the worst and expect for the best. Because you know what the reality is? Everything we just spent an hour talking about might not even exist in July. But if we're prepared for it to, if we're ready for it to happen, if we're prepared for the absolute worst, and it's not as bad as we prepared for it to be, are we ahead or behind?
Absolutely. And I think that the military puts it perfectly. Piss poor preparation leads to piss poor performance. And if we're, I mean,
Every
if
time.
we're preparing now, you know, then we have no excuses. And I really encourage us to go through each of these effects and each of these 22 that Rich has given us. Every one of them, even after being in the industry almost 20 years, it was piquing conversation in my head. And it's piquing conversations on how I could be of better service to the consumer. This is huge, Rich. Thank you. I enjoy the growth that our industry is going to see as a whole. Because if you're thinking to yourself, just ask yourself, if you're thinking to yourself that you're sitting in a position at EXP as a quasi employee, you're absolutely incorrect. You are an independent business owner in the real estate industry. It is our responsibility as business owners, team leaders, team whatever. It is our responsibility to be ahead. We know what's coming in the future. We just don't know what it is. So if we're not preparing, I mean, think about Bill Gates or Betros or Virgin Airways or Elon Musk. Do you think that he's sitting and waiting to see what's going to happen in space? No, he's charging through with what's going on, what the media is saying, and he's taking it and developing that copy and content, and he's enticing us to let us know that he's good at that space stuff, right? I didn't say that right, but it only goes to show as business owners, we have to continue to grow forward. Rich, this is huge, man. You set me on fire today. Thank you, buddy.
It's my pleasure. So I'll leave you with this, and then we'll jump off because I want to respect your time. I want you to look back at your business, and I want you to look at how long it takes for you to acquire a buyer and put them under contract. And if you were to pick up a buyer today, let's say you went into your KV Core or your Boomtown or whatever the hell it is you use. If you pick up a buyer lead today, I want you to look at when they actually buy a house. If the answer is more than 30 days out, if the answer is more than 30 days out, you need to start doing this today. Because in my market here in Cleveland, if we pick up a buyer today, their buyer is going to write 5 to 7 offers before they actually get one accepted in most parts of our town. That could be July. That could be August. If we're not having the conversation now, you're going to do a buyer consultation twice, and the buyer is going to feel like you're pulling the rug out from under them.
Can we also flip that script and say, if you're taking on listings now and you're in a 90-day market in that subdivision, you better be having that conversation now with your sellers because things are going to switch quick, especially when you have 30-day closings, but it's taken 90 days to obtain a contract. So flip the script. Yeah.
Yep.
Do it now.
Good stuff, guys. Thank you so much for being here. Hope you saw value in it. We will see you next week. Enjoy your weekend. And in the Facebook group, I want you to go in And I want you to take your notes and I want you to tell me in the Facebook group which one of these action items you're going to start working on first. Have a great weekend and we'll see you next week.